Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Between now and December 16th, if you use this promo code, you will automatically be entered into a drawing where 13 winners will each win one of the Flipside Gaming Masterpiece Collection playmats. See the description below for more details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and it's that time of the week again where we recap the results of the major tournaments from the weekend. This past weekend, we got a lot to look at. There was Grand Prix New Jersey and Lille in France, which were both standard events. Star City Games did an Open in Charlotte, North Carolina, which was a modern event. They also did a standard and modern classic. We're going to look at the results of all these tournaments with a special focus on the Guilds of Ravnica cards and how they performed in the top decks. Quickly before we get started, just a fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support what we do here at the channel, one of which is our Patreon page. You're also going to find links to products on Amazon down below. If you make any purchases, once you go through that initial link, we'll get a small percentage. And finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers, and you might have heard at the beginning of the video, we're also running another promotion with them, so check out all the details in the description below. But, as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all the viewers. I appreciate each and every one of you, and let's get into it. Alright, let's begin with some standard. First, looking at Grand Prix Jersey, and here is your top 8. Coming in first, as well as 7th and 8th, Jeskai Control. Second place, Boros Angels. Third place, Boros Mentor. That's kind of interesting. We'll look at that list in a second. Fourth place, Selesnya Angels. Not Boros Angels, Selesnya. Fifth place, Selesnya Tokens. And sixth place, Is It Phoenix, also known as Is It Drake. Alright, let's look at some of the deck lists, beginning with that first place Jeskai Control deck. One thing I want to point out about these Jeskai Control decks is there is some difference when it comes to main deck win conditions. If you were to compare this one to the one that came in 7th or 8th, you will see these minor differences. The instants and sorceries for the most part are pretty consistent, but you will find some differences when it comes to planeswalkers or creatures. Some of them are on Crackling Drakes in the main. Also, you'll occasionally see Rahl Is It Viceroy right in the main. But for the most part, they're relatively consistent. So let's take a look at some of the new cards that are in here. From Guilds of Ravnica in the main, you have Deafening Clarion, Chemist's Insight, Disdainful Stroke, Ionize, Expansion Explosion, Sacred Foundry, and Steam Vents. In the sideboard, you're going to find Niv Mizzet and Lava Coil. Second place, Boros Angels. This is a strong deck right now in the meta. It looked really good this weekend. Even the ones that didn't top 8 still performed very well for the most part. And I do think this is one to watch as we move closer to the Pro Tour now. And it doesn't look that different from builds we saw in previous weeks. 3 Lyra, 4 Resplendent Angel, 4 Rekindling Phoenix in this particular one, 4 History of Benalia. Let's take a look at the influence from the new cards. Guilds of Ravnica brought us Aurelia, Lava Coil, Justice Strike, and Sacred Foundry in the main. Out of the sideboard, Deafening Clarion. Third place was Boros Mentor. We've seen a number of Boros decks perform well ever since this meta started. Well, this one has more of an emphasis on Mentor, and we'll be looking at some of those cards in just a second. But also, in relationship to the new cards, we have a lot of old standbys here. You get a copy of Direfleet Daredevil in the main. You're going to find 4 Militia Buglers here, 2 Rekindling Phoenix. When it comes to non-creature spells, you got Shock, you got Legion's Landing, 3 of them in the main here. Let's see what Guilds brings us, though. A lot of cards here. Bounty Agent, Legion Warboss, Aurelia, of course, Swiftblade Vindicator, Tegic Legion's Edge, Lava Coil, Justice Strike, Integrity Intervention, and Sacred Foundry. Out of the sideboard, another copy of Bounty Agent. Deafening Clarion's here again. Another copy of Justice Strike, Conclave Tribunal, and another copy of Integrity Intervention. Fourth place, Selesnya Angels. It's not just all about Boros Angels. Selesnya Angels also can put up a nice result. And you see a lot of the consistent Angel cards here that we've seen before. Shalai, Voice of Plenty, 3 of those. 3 Lyra Dawnbringer, 4 Resplendent Angel, and some other familiar cards like 4 History of Benalia. But what's interesting about this is there's more of an influence from the Planeswalkers. You have 3 Ajani, Adversary of Tyrants in the main. You have 2 Vivian Reeds in the main, another one in the sideboard. This is a pretty interesting build. Cards from Guild include Assure Assemble, Flower Flourish, and Temple Garden. Out of the sideboard, Knight of Autumn and Conclave Tribunal. Selesnya Tokens came in 5th place. This was a very solid deck, especially week 1. Felt like it was starting to fall off a little bit. People were moving away from this into Abzan mid-range. But this week, here you go. Selesnya Tokens again putting up some good results. And this doesn't look too different from the deck list we saw a couple weeks ago. Here's some of the key cards from Guilds. Venerated Loxodon, Amarasol of the Accord, Destrani Discordance, March of the Multitudes, Conclave Tribunal, Flower and Flourish, Temple Garden. Sideboard brings us Nullhide Ferox, Knight of Autumn, Citywide Bust, and Assure and Assemble. 6th place, is it Phoenix or is it Drake? This deck had a lot of buzz going into the weekend, and it put up a nice result here, so I do think we're going to hear more from it in the future. Now, as you can see from the creature list here, you have some key creatures from Guilds of Ravnica, maybe the marquee card of the last couple weeks, 4 copies of Arclight Phoenix. We'll look at those closer in just a second. Also 4 copies of Crackling Drake. But in addition, you get 4 copies of Enigma Drake here. Of course, these are powered by some cheap instants and sorceries that are pretty good in their own right. For example, Opt, Shock, Charted Course, so on. So let's take a look at the cards from guilds that are here. We mentioned already Arclight Phoenix and Crackling Drake. You also get Lava Coil, Maximize Velocity, Beacon Bolt, Steam Vents. Out of the sideboard, Nib Mizzets here, 2 more copies of Lava Coil, another copy of Beacon Bolt, Disdainful Stroke, and Firemind's Research. This deck came in 10th place, so it didn't make the top 8, but I thought it was interesting enough to point out. Selesnya mid-range. A little bit different here from what we've been seeing. Look at those Planeswalkers. 3 Karn Sign of Urza in the main, another one in the sideboard. 2 Vivian Reed in the main, another one in the sideboard. And then you see a number of creatures you're familiar with. You got 4 Llanowar Elves in the main, along with 2 Knight of Grace, 3 Carnage Tyrant. But it does a lot of things that are familiar, yet a little bit different. You have 2 Vine Mares in the main and 2 Ansera's Wings, which of course play well together. And then you have 2 more copies of each in the sideboard. I just thought this was an interesting build. Cards from Guilds of Ravnica in the main. There's actually none in the sideboard here, but you have March of Multitudes, Flower and Flourish, and Temple Garden. Okay, let's travel to the other side of the world, to France with Grand Prix Lille. And this time you're going to see some familiar decks, but a few different ones. We'll look at those different deck lists now. You have 1st place, Mono Red Aggro. 2nd place, Mono Blue Tempo. 3rd place as well as 4th place, Golgari Midrange. 5th place as well as 7th place, Jeskai Control. 6th place, another Is It Phoenix Drake deck. And 8th place, Selesnya Tokens. Okay, let's look at those top 3 decks since we haven't looked at those type of deck lists yet. Mono Red Aggro. Okay, this one's interesting. It came in 1st place. A friend of mine was running this in GP New Jersey, actually, this weekend. Made it to day 2, but he was having trouble with the consistency of the deck, he said. Now, yes, it is true. I do feel like Mono Red Aggro is kind of inconsistent, although this one did put up a nice result. You can't argue with that. So let's take a look at this particular build. 2 Rekindling Phoenix, 4 Goblin Chain Whirlers, nothing too dramatic here, 4 Lightning Strike, 4 Shock, 4 Wizard's Lightning. You've seen it all before. From Guilds of Ravnica, you had 4 copies of Runaway Steamkin, and you did have 4 copies of Experimental Frenzy in the main, which I feel like is the right way to go with this build. Sideboard had 3 Lava Coils. Mono Blue Tempo. This is actually kind of cool to see in the 2nd place spot here, because this is a deck that's been around for a while. It was even kicking in the last meta, not necessarily putting up huge results, but it was around. And there was a ton of buzz going into this meta that this could be the deck to beat, especially like week 1, week 2 of major tournaments. We didn't see huge results, but finally now we see a big one coming in 2nd place here. And you're going to notice there are actually no cards from Guilds of Ravnica in the main, although there are some in the sideboard. But some of the main cards that you're going to see here for Tempest Djinn, for Siren Storm Tamer, for Mistcloaked Herald, for Merfolk Trickster, for Curious Obsession. Let's look at the guilds cards. Out of the sideboard, Selective Snare, Chemister's Insight, and Disdainful Stroke. 3rd place, we finally find a Golgari midrange deck. Even though we didn't see any top 8 in Jersey, they were still performing very well. This is still a deck that can put up some big results, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon. You're going to notice, though, and I mentioned this last week, that if you look at these deck lists here or there, you're going to find some wild differences. For example, they'll run different numbers of Carnage Tyrants. Some of them will run Doom Whisperer right in the main. This one, however, isn't. You're going to notice, too, with the Planeswalkers, just different numbers of those between what you find in the main as well as the sideboard. This one not running Vraska Relic Seeker, which is actually a pretty popular choice overall. You'll find those many times in the main and definitely in sideboards of most builds, but this one just doesn't have that card. Still did well, though, as you can see. Let's look at the cards from guilds here. Bunch of them. Vraska Golgari Queen, you got one of those in the main. Midnight Reaper, Golgari Finebroker, Assassin's Trophy, Find and Finality, and Overgrown Tomb. Out of the sideboard, another copy of Midnight Reaper and Plague Crafter. All right, one more standard tournament to look at. We've looked at all these deck lists, or at least variants of these deck lists, with the exception of the deck that came in number 1. So we'll look at that in just a moment. But first place, 5-color control. You're going to want to see this one. Second place, Jeskai Control. That also came in third place. Fourth place, Boros Angels. Fifth place, Selesnya Tokens. Sixth place, Mono Red Aggro. Seventh and eighth place, Golgari Midrange. All right, here it is. 5-color control. I've seen this deck played in a few different places. I didn't expect a result like this, a first place result in the Classic, even though this is a smaller tournament in comparison to the GPs. Still, though, this is pretty amazing. If you've never seen this deck before, basically, of course, you have 5 colors going on. We'll look at the new cards and the mana base a little more in just a second. But the whole idea here is you stay alive with things like Lich's Mastery, and that opens up cards like Chance for Glory even. There's 2 of those in the main. But then you use Mastermind's Acquisition to go to the sideboard and choose your win condition, basically. And you have things in there like Carnage Tyrant, Thief of Sanity, Lyra Dawnbringer, Banefire. You're also going to find things like Expansion Explosion right in the main. That could be a win condition. So this is a really, really sweet build. And I want to see more of this one. Can it put up another big result? Well, time will tell. But it's a cool deck, if nothing else. Guilds cards. We got a lot of them. Chemister's Insight, Chance for Glory, as I mentioned, Discovery, Dispersal, Expansion Explosion, Gateway Plaza's even in here. And then you have all of your Shocklands, Overgrown Tomb, Sacred Foundry, Steam Vents, Temple Garden, and Watery Grave. Sideboard, Knight of Autumn, Thief of Sanity, and Deafening Clarion. One more deck from this tournament came in 11th place, so it missed the top 8, but this is Grixis Control. It felt like a big weekend for Jeskai Control, but I wanted to remind you, other control decks can still do well, like this one, which runs 4 Nicol Bolas, the Ravengers in the main. And we've seen these deck lists in previous weeks, it's not too different, but these always run a lot of Guilds cards. And here they are. Dream Eater, Doom Whisperer, Thief of Sanity, Ritual of Soot, Thought Erasure, Disdainful Stroke, Disinformation Campaign, Discovery Dispersal, Steam Vents, Watery Grave. Out of the sideboard, Blood Operative, Lava Coil, and another copy of Disdainful Stroke. Alright, that wraps up Standard, but let's talk a little Modern with the Star City Games Modern Open. And you can see here that Modern continues to be pretty diverse, especially when you compare this to the Classic, which we'll look at in just a moment. First place and second place, though, was Amulet Titan. That deck had a great week. Third place, Titan Shift. Fourth place is Azorius Control. Fifth place, Storm. Sixth place, Jund puts up a nice result. Seventh place, Bant Spirits. Eighth place, Is It Wizards. So let's look at a couple of the deck lists that actually had some cards from Guilds of Ravnica in them. We'll begin with Jund, which came in 6th place. Yep, here's your Jund deck, 4 Dark Confidants. I do want to point that out because sometimes these decks were running less Bobs, especially recently. This one running all 4. 3 Bloodbraid Elves in the main, 3 Scavenging Ooze, 4 Tarmogoyf, 4 Liliana of the Veil. They're all here. The Jund band is definitely together. But one of the new cards, which was supposed to push this deck, and maybe it is, 3 copies of Assassin's Trophy in the main. 7th place, Bant Spirits. Nothing out of the ordinary here for the most part. You know this deck list now pretty well, I'm sure. 4 Supreme Phantom. You have 2 Phantasmal Images in the main, 4 Noble Hierarch, so on and so forth. However, in the sideboard, Knight of Autumn makes an appearance, 2 copies. And finally, the Star City Games Modern Classic. First place, Gruul Land Destruction. Second place, Mardu Pyromancer. Third place, as well as 7th place, Mono Green Tron. 4th place, Azorius Spirits. 5th place, Humans. 6th place, Dredge. 8th place, Elves. Dredge has been pretty good ever since the inclusion of Creeping Chill. We'll look at that deck list in just a second. Definitely putting up some nicer results, and it looks good this week too. But let's look at that Humans deck first that came in 5th place. Now, a lot of Humans decks recently have been running Tajik Legion's Edge. You don't see that here, but you do see 2 cards from Guilds in the sideboard. A copy of Plague Crafter, 2 copies of Knight of Autumn. And here's that Dredge deck coming in 6th place. And like I said, Creeping Chill, of course, playing a big role here. And yeah, other than that, these deck lists aren't changing all that much, but it does help the deck quite a bit. You're going to find typically 4 copies of this card. And this deck also had 3 Assassin's Trophy in the sideboard. Alright, those are the results for the week. Later in the week, we will be doing some Market Watch episodes to examine the impact that these results are actually going to have on card prices. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.